Hello, I'm John Waters, and I'm supposed to announce there is no smoking in this theater, which I think is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of in my life. How can anyone sit through a length of a film, and especially a European film, and not have a cigarette? But don't you wish you had one right now? And I'm telling you that smoke anyway. It gives ushers jobs, and if people didn't smoke, there would be no employment for the youth of today. So once again, no smoking in this theater.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. It is October 30th, 2023. It is 7 o'clock Eastern. We are an hour away from Monday Night Raw if you're on the East Coast, or if you happen to have East Coast feed, you're on the West Coast. It is the day before Halloween. It is Meach's Musings. We are on the Jeff Meacham Network and across some of the multiverse as well as social media. I am, of course, Jeff Meacham, hence the name here and the big giant, Anyway. It's Monday, of course, which means normally, wow, all right, I'm hitting 1,000 today. Normally, it would just be a big shill stream here on a Monday, but we're also going to talk about what I got to finally watch today and heard about over the weekend. But we're going to give a particular member of the audience time to get home from picking the kids up from school so he can be a part of the discussion. So in the meantime, we'll get into the shills right away here, right off the top. If you missed this morning's For the Love of Wrestling, which talked about SmackDown as well as Rampage and Collision, please go check that out over on the Costain Studios from this morning. And JJ, of course, will be live tomorrow with his coverage of Raw and NXT on Wednesday and Dynamite on Thursday morning. JJ every morning, Monday through Thursday, talking about all the things televised wrestling, AEW and WWE. So please check that out. Give it a watch. We'll talk about, we'll talk about Halloween right now, as a matter of fact. Get the videos out of the way. Just get all that shit out of the way now. Why the hell not? Here's what's coming up tomorrow between the Casa and the multiverse, across the multiverse, as a matter of fact. Here it is. Yes, and not only will you see all that, we're going to start it off at midnight tonight with a special the bonus, if you will, for the members-only section of the Costain Studios, as JJ, along with the Simple Man with secular voice, Noah Foster, lend their voices to arguably the greatest match in WCW history, certainly the greatest match in Halloween Havoc history, as Eddie Guerrero defends the Cruiserweight Championship against the challenge of the mask of one Rey Mysterio Jr., that, of course, from Halloween Havoc 97. Again, one of the greatest matches tomorrow, being featured tomorrow, starting midnight tonight, so technically tonight into tomorrow. One of the best ever. And yes, Daniel, definitely a busy Halloween tomorrow. Again, we're talking about this going up at midnight. We're talking about JJ's coverage of Monday Night Raw going up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on the Costain Studios, of course, exclusively there. And then we're off and running with the live stuff for everybody JJ, of course, is live at 9 o'clock. He and I are live at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific, coming up 2 p.m. Eastern, with our ranking, the ultimate ranking of the genre-defining horror slasher series that is Halloween, of course, the saga of Michael Myers. That's at 11 o'clock, 2 p.m. Eastern. Immediately following that, give or take a couple minutes or so, at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Here in California, will be happy hour once again for Stat Boy Sports Bar featuring Dory Lou. Tons of stuff going on in the world of sports. This is one of our favorite times of year. Every single sport is active right now, and with the exception, I believe, of women's basketball. So we've got men's golf and women's golf active more often than not. Same with tennis. We've got NASCAR wrapping up its season. We've got Formula One going to Vegas in a couple weeks. We've got the NBA starting. The NHL's underway. World Series is on. And football, NFL, and college is in the swing of things. So please check it out tomorrow. And then, of course, tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, we will go live with night 2 of Halloween Havoc, presented by the NXT brand of WWE, of course. So much good stuff. And then we close the night off. We cap the night off, if you will, with Talk Wrestling, hosted by little old me, across the multiverse, including NoDQ.com tomorrow night. So be looking out for everything tomorrow. It's going to be one of our busiest days of the year, certainly the busiest day of this week. Looking forward to it. It's good to be staying busy. I tell you, it was deflating to not have a full-time out of studio position to go to, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Of course, Wednesday will be the Greg Cherry Show, as it is each and every Wednesday. I won't be there this week. I'll be at the Guns N' Roses show at the Hollywood Bowl, of course, as I've said a few times now. So I'll be, unfortunately, missing the Greg Cherry Show this week, but please check it out with he and Matty Laws doing their whatever comes to mind on a Wednesday. You know those two. So Thursday, let me get the logo out of the way here. Thursday will be a very special presentation here exclusively on the Jeff Meach Network. I know the video is going to say we're across the multiverse. Not going to be the case, it looks like, as of now. May have to augment that. But going forward, definitely on the Jeff Meach Network, we're going to be presenting our countdown to Hard to Kill, which, of course, is coming up on Saturday, January 13th, out in Vegas. The return of TNA Wrestling, and we're going back and looking at some of the greatest matches, and on a couple occasions, the greatest, funniest moments, to be sure, in the history of the TNA branded company, TNA Wrestling. And we started off Thursday night, immediately following the East Coast broadcast of Impact. So coming up at 7 p.m. out here on the West Coast, 10 p.m. Eastern, will be Throwback Thursday, going back to Genesis 2007, and the number one contender ladder match between Christian Cage and the man then known simply as Kaz. Friday, another busy day coming up. Simply Predicting for Crown Jewel, featuring Noah Foster, of course, as Hiltman Brand, likely J.J. Williams as well. He'll be there in all likelihood. And then we finish Friday night with our coverage of Impact Plus's Turning Point. That'll be at 7:30 Eastern. We go live 4:30 Pacific. Saturday morning, Crown Jewel. Saturday morning for us anyway. We're going to go live at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with our coverage of the event in Saudi Arabia. And we wrap up the week over on NoDQ.com with the No DQ review, Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific. And of course, you see there you can vote now across the social media presences of NoDQ.com for the 2003 inductees into the NoDQ.com Hall of Fame. I believe the ones that are live right now are for male superstar of all time and female. Those are the categories up for vote at this moment. So that is literally everything going on this week until we come right back here next Monday. As far as the other topic I promised to address in my social media plugs for today, I'd like to address the latest offerings from Vince Russo. And people are, oh, God, he's going to harp on Russo. He's going to criticize, blah, 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 whatever. Not the case today. That's not going to be what I'm doing today. What I am going to say is, for the first time in a long time, which is maybe ever, I think, if you factor in the third party, Eric Bischoff and myself both agree with Vince Russo when it comes to a certain journalist who resides in Northern California, who has made his business to present his opinions on the industry as facts, and does not print a retraction when he has been declared wrong and proven wrong numerous times. Vince Russo went into deep, like 45 minutes worth discussion with his audience. And he was on the show by himself, but went into deep discussion about one Big Dave up in NorCal. JJ, good to see you made it. You made it in time, brother, just for the shenanigans about the NorCal nitwit. It was very surreal. I'm not going to lie. I was watching Eric Bischoff, and of course, I feel a friend of the channel, whether it is he is or not, and whether he believes I am or not. Friend of the channel, Conrad Thompson, doing a watch along of Halloween Havoc 99, which was the first pay-per-view in WCW under the complete control creatively of Vince Russo. And yes, Bischoff, as always, critical of Russo's booking. I mean, there's no way around that. But there was a question brought up, and I found it so refreshing. One of the people in the chat room asked, who has been more harmful to the business, or brought more harm to the business, Vince Russo or Dave Meltzer? And without even taking a breath or pausing or hesitating, Eric Bischoff said Dave Meltzer. And for Eric Bischoff to say that and not say Vince Russo right away is telling, because Bischoff has been more than critical of Vince Russo. And I just found that, and I got people replying, including Aaron Rift. I'm gonna throw Aaron under the bus here, even though it's a big day for him and on his side of the family, if you will. I don't think it has anything to do with Bischoff's grudge against Dave Meltzer. I think Dave Meltzer has been lying. It was ridiculous how much clout he has. And I have said from the beginning, when I started really focusing on doing more than just, grab assing with my old co-host back in 2002, since I really started focusing on what I wanted to present, is that the only reason Dave has clout now is because he was given complete access to Bret Hart's side of what happened leading up to, during, and after Montreal in 1997. Prior to that, it was literally nothing more than a dirt sheet passed around locker rooms in both WWE or WWF at the time, WCW, and all the other promotions. And Vince Russo made a good point this morning, or when I watched it this morning, but he put the post up last week, the video up last week, live streamed actually. The problem with Meltzer's influence now is that the marks have made their way into the business. And what I mean by that is, yes, I'm a glorified fan, just like Dave Meltzer is. I am I don't claim to be a journalist. I did go to school to be a journalist, did not complete courses, so I don't consider myself a journalist. But it was a very telling thing that I had never heard before until actually I watched Conrad and Eric's thing first. And I think Conrad brought it up because Russo brought it up. I don't know that, but I'm guessing that's why it was brought up. There was in 1991, there was a steroid symposium, as it was called throughout the media, that Vince McMahon had invited several journalists to Titan Tower to, hear the new laws are going to go in place, because of course they're going to for the investigation and the Dr. Sahorian and everything that was going on in the 90s with the steroids and the proliferation of it. And among the invitees was Dave Meltzer, and Dave Meltzer was said, and again, I didn't hear this firsthand. More than one person has said that Dave Meltzer said this, so I lend credibility to it at this point. Why would I go over there? All Vince McMahon is going to do is lie anyway. So a journalist who claims to be a journalist has already reached his conclusion about what the head of a company is going to say rather than take the facts and present the story as it should be presented, which is the truth. Dave Meltzer did this in 1991. You can go back and look. It's a thing. So right there, any minute chance of anybody that I have legitimate respect for or have respected presenting Dave Meltzer's bullshit as anything but just that, which is bullshit, is out the window. And I sincerely apologize if this is offending people that I love and care about. You know who you are, because you're getting offended by it right now. But that negates any sort of clout or respectability I would ever have for somebody. This man went to be fair, went to school and completed his degree, certificate, whatever you want to call it, to be a journalist. And rather than go and get the facts, however they're going to be presented, he's made his conclusion and he's not going to go to this symposium and get the other side of the story, as any other reputable journalist would. Huh? That's ridiculous. So right there, I was like, hearing Russo say it, and then having Conrad Thompson and Eric Bischoff back it up, and having Bischoff agree with Vince Russo on something was frightening. But if so many people agree about this one individual that I have far more respect for, and let me be clear, I have not been kind to Vince Russo at all, unjustifiably. Yes, I'm a Hulkamaniac, will live, breathe, and die red and yellow, right? But that was one incident between two parties, three if you count Bischoff or whoever else was involved in that bullshit in 2000. But Dave has been a presence like that and a cancer. There's a good point brought up in the chat room by JJ. I'm not going to bring the whole thing up. And I only say that I'm not Jay because it's people like the management and the talent in AEW that have boosted Meltzer's ass to thinking he's legitimate or credible. And it's the point that Russo brings up. The marks have made their way in. A lot of people forget that Nick and Matt, in particular, the Young Bucks, started out as backyarders that were running their federation in their own, literally in their own backyard, much like the Hardys did. Okay, I'm not going to try to throw anybody under the bus, and I'm not going to throw anybody else with them. The difference is when Matt and Jeff, to my knowledge, worked for the WWF, they weren't feeding into Meltzer's garbage. Matt and Nick named a move after Dave Meltzer because Dave Meltzer kept criticizing them. And the minute they did that, he got off of their ass and jumped on their nuts instead. That's exactly how it went down. You can measure the time, you can follow the timeline. Dave Meltzer critiqued the Bucks, rode the Bucks like show ponies. And the minute they called their team move, the Meltzer driver, he couldn't get enough of these guys. Or anybody else that was based here but worked in Japan exclusively. Kenny Omega, like Hangman Page for a while. It is ridiculous to me that there are so many people jumping to his defense. So many people that are jumping to Tony Khan's defense for Tony's seeming obsession with being better than rather than different than. And Dave Meltzer, I'm trying to be, has allowed this to be a thing. So yes, I'm responding to Vince Russo's thing, but in reality, it's not just Vince Russo that has come out and said this about Dave Meltzer. He's just the latest one. And to be fair, Russo's been kind of doing these once a week. He had a response to what Tony Khan did. He's had a reach out to Triple H in recent weeks, and now he's gone to task about Dave Meltzer. So I applaud Vince Russo for not giving a shit what anybody has to say or think about him, even now, 30-something years later, and can let people know whatever you want to believe else we want to believe about Vince Russo. The reality of things, and again, Meltzer, unlike Meltzer, Russo was clear at the top. Everything I'm going to say, bro, is my opinion. A lot of these things are going to be facts and they can be documented, but it's my opinion on these facts. That's what a journalist is supposed to do. Vince Russo was a journalist himself. He went to school for it. He was a radio host. He wrote for various publications out in his area. So that is how I feel about it. And I know that I've only got a limited audience because I didn't go on no DQ because I knew it wouldn't get very positive response. But I'm probably going to talk more about this tomorrow on Talk Wrestling. So please tune in tomorrow night, Halloween night, after Halloween Havoc, because I'll be across the multiverse, including no DQ, about what's coming up this weekend. Of course, again, Turning Point for Impact Wrestling, Crown Jewel, which is a controversial thing in and of itself. The I'm going to leave you guys with a ha-ha at the end of this because it's 20 after 4. We're going to wind it down a little bit. First of all, again, I do want to blatantly, openly shill for tomorrow's presentations. We're going to start. Yes, he was the editor of a kayfabe magazine. I grant you. But even still, he was hired because he had a little bit of journalism going for him in the first place. But I digress. Anyway. So prior to the already scheduled Halloween shenanigans for tomorrow, as I did point out earlier, JJ, the Renegade of Wrestling, out in the Coliseum Studios tonight at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, will be in the member section of the Casa, posting he and Noah Foster's voices, lending the call to Halloween Havoc 1997, probably the greatest match in WWE history, certainly the greatest match in Halloween Havoc history, as the mask of Rey Mysterio Jr. was on the line against Eddie Guerrero's WCW Cruiserweight Championship. From there, we go into Halloween Day. By the way, Jay, I know you're there. I'm not sure why the file with the voice overlays wouldn't play through. It was being a pain in my ass. It wasn't anything to do with what you did. I think it was just my phone and my computer being my phone and my computer. But I did appreciate.
Answer your question. A computer is a machine that
Hang on. Computer, stop.
Sequences of arithmetic or logical operations automatically. Modern digital electronic.
Computer, stop.
Generic sets of
Jesus
operations
Christ.
known as programs.
Don't make your control word for your anything you're going to say a lot. Clearly, botch. Anyway, my devices did not let me play the Halloween voiceover tricked out versions of the trailer, so I apologize. But as you saw, we will have our coverage, JJ's review of Monday Night Raw going up at 9 a.m. Local time here, noon Eastern, and then we're off to the races. I said it before. JJ and I doing a bonus episode of Dad's Not Always on Wrestling for October as we do the ultimate ranking of the genre-defining movie series that is Halloween, the saga of Michael Myers. That's at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, followed pretty much immediately, if we're being honest, by Happy Hour over at Statboy Sports Bar coming up at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. See, when I do it JJ's way, I go backwards. Trying to do East Coast first because that's how the world works, unfortunately. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. We will be live with Night 2 of Halloween Havoc across the multiverse, and then including no DQ. After that, we will be live. I'll be live with Talk Wrestling, so we'll talk more about Russo and Meltzer and all the things tomorrow night. Of course, again, the Greg Cherry Show Wednesday. minus Jeff Meacham, unfortunately. Thursday, again, our countdown to Hard to Kill begins with our TNA Throwback Thursday as Christian Cage and Kaz from Genesis 2007. We will be having our retro watch along of that. Friday will be Simply Predicting with Noah Foster, and I believe JJ will be on that as well for Crown Jewel. Friday night, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, with Turning Point presented by Impact Plus with the call by Noah and Datilla. Saturday morning, bright ass early because WWE hates us. 9 a.m. local time, noon Eastern, with our watch along coverage and our pre-show for Crown Jewel. And of course, we wrap the weekend up Saturday night with Open Mic Night, which will be topics to be determined, as always, by JJ. We'll see how hopefully it'll be a decent news week or a slow news week where we can come up with good topics that'll be both meaty and maybe a little controversial, maybe just a little bit. And then, of course, Sunday night, the No DQ review with Aaron, Virtue, and myself. I believe, I don't know who else has made their presence known for that, but Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Pacific. And of course, you can vote on the NoDQ.com 2023 Hall of Fame now over at NoDQ.com. So go check that out as well. And lest we forget, on demand now, JJ's recap of Friday and Saturday's SmackDown, Rampage, and Collision. Tomorrow morning, Monday Night Raw coverage. Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, NXT coverage. Thursday morning, his review of AEW Dynamite. That is everything going on this weekend. Of course, we're right back here next Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern, hopefully, 4 Pacific with Meach's Musings. That's it for me, really. I just didn't have a whole lot to show today. So thank you all very much. It is much appreciated. Check out our coverage of Halloween stuff tomorrow. You'll be glad you did. I know we'll be glad you did. We'll see you tomorrow night. And don't forget, if you're watching on the Casa, midnight tonight, if you remember, the call of Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. So check it out, everything across the multiverse, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.